Good morning everyone and welcome to Project Swan. My name is Channing and I will be taking you through the next few weeks of tutorials. Okay, so just to begin, Project Swan is an initiative or a set of tutorials to kind of get you guys through some Python programming. So I suppose a good place to start is why you guys do Python, or why have we kind of suggested that we do this. So we're actually doing this because Python's amazing. And it's really fun, really great to get into, and a brilliant skill to have. There are so many people across the industry that use Python, and what's great is you can also program little computers to make really cool stuff. Us in particular, so that I'm currently still at university, and we've actually used what we call a Raspberry Pi to make an arcade system, which is pretty cool. So as I say again, Python is the way to go. And we think it's pretty important to have Python because there are loads of industries out there who use it, love it, and now we're going to make you guys masters in it too. So, just to give you a little bit of background, Python is an object-oriented programming language. What does that mean? Okay, so an object-oriented programming language basically works using classes and objects. Now, I'm going to mention a bit more about that later, but all you kind of need to grasp about classes and objects is that we essentially create a class every time we want to create an object of a specific type. So an example of classes could be shapes, animal types like dogs, cats, fish, possibly shoes, and anything that would normally be a category of its own could be considered a class, because then later you'll have objects which are instances of that class. What I mean by instances is, if you have a dog class, a beagle or a Dalmatian could be an instance or an object of that class, because obviously Dalmatians and beagles are both dogs, but they're different types of dogs. So you can create instances every time. But we'll get more into what classes and objects and all that kind of stuff is a bit later. But now we're going to go a little bit into Python and Python basics. And I'd like to start with today's objectives, which is variables, how we manipulate those, how we assign variables, how we declare them, how we give them variable names, and like how we print them and manipulate things. Just do really cool stuff. And at the end of the day, what I would love to do is get on to the extension assignment, which is basically you guys will be making images on the canvas. A nice little fun task to do to kind of put some of the skills you've learned into practice. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so number one thing you need to do is open up PyCharm. As you can see the icon, you're going to have a very similar icon, but you're using Linux. At the moment, you can see I'm using Windows with a very scary Batman background there, a little bit of Joker action. Can't complain. So yeah, but you guys need to open up PyCharm. Awesome. Okay, when that loads. Always technical difficulties in the first shot. Let's try again. Oh, that could be because I already have PyCharm open. Okay, well, you click the icon. Brilliant. Okay, so we have PyCharm. So, as you can see, have already started a project. But, for you guys, you will have a blank canvas. So I'm just going to show you where you would start. So you need to go to File, New Project. And then, as you can see, you're going to come to a window like this, which is asking you for where you want to store your project. So ideally, you see this file path, this will probably already be in there for you, and as you can see, it by default selects Untitled. You want to clear that out, pick something sensible. So in this case, as we're doing the shape project at the end of this tutorial, I called it shapes. But you could quite as easily call it anything that you think is appropriate. But I think shapes is a great starting point, so let's call it shapes. As you can see, I already created my project, so I don't need to do this for you guys. Now, for any reason, if it hasn't by default given you the location, you just press the triple dots or ellipses, and you're just going to navigate to where your documents are or where you'd like to store this. So in this case, C drive uses, in my folder, my username here, and then down to Python, PyCharm projects, whatever you want to call it, stick it in there. That'd be great. That's probably where you want to create a directory for all your files. That makes the most sense. Hit OK, we're all good to go, brilliant. Okay. The second thing you're going to need to do is generate an interpreter. Now what the interpreter is the python.exe file. Now installed onto all of your machines is Python 3.4. So it'll be pretty easy to find this. By default, PyCharm will probably be able to find it anyway, and it will appear here in this drop-down. If it does not, hit the cog, press add local, and then just go through a similar series of looking through your directory and finding where that python.exe file is. In this case, it's in the Python 3.4 folder under the C directory, and we're going to go to python.exe, select that one and hit OK. As I've got my interpreter ready, I don't need to do that. And then you want to hit create. OK. And then nearly a project like this, for potentially many differences, you might also see this. And this is just an author variable, so that if later on we need to know whose code this is, that's in there. Okay, that's not essential, so we can clean that out. Okay, we are ready to start programming. This is great. Okay, so to kick off, what is a variable? So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to comment. So we're going to do hashtag for hashes, and then we're just going to put variables out here so that we know that's our title for this little bit here. Okay, oh, just to put this in here, when I use the hash sign as a comment, it creates comments. And what comments are is they're not read by any machine at all. They're just there for you to write a piece of text if you need to. And that way it breaks up your code and you can easily see what is going on where. Okay? So that'd be kind of handy to have straight away. Cool. I'm also going to put the setting because I find this really helpful. If you go to View, no, I'm wrong. If you go to File, maybe it is View. Yes, if you go to View and you go to Active Editor, you can actually put on the line numbers. And you will see in a minute why that's really important. Because when you get errors, it is so good to know that you can find out what line number it is. Because it will tell you the line number in here, but if you don't have them up here, it's a little bit more of a bind. So I would suggest putting that setting on. Okay. So, to start with, what is a variable? So a variable essentially is a characteristic. When we are working with classes objects in programming, we use variables because what that is essentially is a storage unit. So look at a variable as a box. If I had a box, I can put anything in that box. I can put a piece of paper, I could put anything in there. And then I close the box, put a label on it, and then you know what is inside the box. Think of a variable in the same way. What we do with a variable is we store a piece of information, whether that's a number, a piece of text, a true or false, a decimal, or something with like a decimal point, a negative number, a natural number, which is basically any value from 0 and above, anything like that you could put inside a variable. A shape, anything you can think of, you can put inside a variable. Okay, and so we use variables to make our lives a bit easier, and that way we can basically store information inside of those variables. Okay, so I'm going to start you off with one variable type. So I think I mentioned at the beginning of this that we'll be working through types today and declaration of variables. So I'm going to show you a variable type called string. Let's go with string. So what is a string? A string is a type of variable where we can use text. So whether that's a single letter, as in A, B, C, D, E, whatever you want to do, whether that's a word or whether that's a sentence. Those can all be established in a string. So how do we declare a string? Okay. So as we've got a shape class, I'm going to have a variable called name. Okay. Now as you've seen, I've just written name there, and we've got some red squiggly lines under that. And that's because we've just written name, but we've not assigned anything to name. So what we're going to need is an assignment operator. So in this case, that equals. So now I'm just saying name equals something. Okay? Now to establish a string, we use quotation marks. Can you see that they're in green and they're like, and there's 2 quotation marks, and that squiggly line's gone? That's because we're now saying name equals blank. Just going to put that out there. But I could put any text in here. So in this case, I'm going to say name equals. Now let's think of a name of a shape. I'm going to go for circle. So name equals circle. Sorry about that, let's close that. We don't need that for now. So name equals circle. Okay. So now I've just created our very first variable. That's great. Brilliant. Do you know what? I think it's important that we understand why we've just created a variable called name with a value of circle as a piece of text. So what I'm going to do is show you how we can check that name actually equals circle. So we're going to use something that is called a print statement. And what a print statement does is it shows you what happens when the machine runs. It basically prints, as it says, prints out the details. So, as you might be able to see here, print is actually a built-in function. So that means PyCharm, any IDE or interactive development environment will be able to tell you built-in functions. So inside the print statement, I'm going to put print name. Just really simple print, and I just want to print the name variable. So let's just go ahead and run this. Now to run this, I'm going to have to right click, go down to run shapes. Oh look, and down here in our little output, we can see that I've just printed the word circle because I'm asking to print name, and it's looking in name and saying what's stored in name. Oh, it's circle. There we go. So we have circle down here. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is, now I think we've worked with strings, I'm going to teach you about another type. So the second type I'm going to look into is called integer, or int for short, that is used in Python. So when we establish an integer, what we mean by integer, and this is across the board by the way, is an integer is a whole number. That means that you can have a positive number, 500, 1,000, 200,000, billion, whatever value you want. But you can have a positive number or a negative number, -5, -10. It's completely fine. All of those are integers. And 0 as well, just to put that in there. They're all integers. So when we're assigning an integer, or we want to declare a variable that is an integer, we do our variable name. So in this case, because we're working with shapes, I think a good variable to have a height. So what should the height be? I'm going to go for 6, because 6 is a good number. As you can see, there we go, we just created an integer variable. It's got a variable name of height. We've used that equals operator to mean assigned to, and then we've given you a 6. So any number would have fitted the situation, but I picked 6. So now we've created that variable. And in the same way as we did before, I'm going to print that out just to check that height actually equals, what do we expect to see? So let's run it again. As you can see, actually, I can now run the shapes project because I already used it before. And there we go. The 6 appears here, which means that height is equal to 6, and this was all working as it should be. Okay. Now Now, there are loads of variable types, but there's one more variable type that's really essential to know. And this one's called Boolean, or bool for short. Okay, so in Python, we use booleans as our true and false variable. So actually, this actually is true across all programming languages. Booleans are true and false variables, so they can only be true or false. There are no other values. And what we use them for is usually when we want a probability outcome. So almost like a flip of a coin, you can only have a head or a tail. You can't have, unless it's a fixed coin, you can't have two heads or two tails. So booleans are very, very useful for that purpose, because in many cases you can only have something that's true or false. It can't ever be both. So that's what we use booleans for. So I'm going to create another variable, but this time it's going to be a type boolean, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So just as an interesting side note, I'm going to do something a bit different this time. I'm going to have a variable called inbox. That's what I'm going to have. So at the moment, we're doing an exercise where shapes are going in boxes. Doesn't make complete sense, but we're going to just roll with it for the moment. Okay, so I've got inbox equals, and now I'm going to have the true or the false. So I'm going to set it as true. Oh, look. So instantly, we can see that true is a known value. So it's a value that's used in Python everywhere. So it's showing you, okay, you're about to put true in, I can do that for you. It's almost like an automatic response by the compiler, because it knows built-in functions, predefined functions, and it also knows certain variables. And true is when false are one of those variables. Just as equally, if I'd done F, it would come up with false, which is here. But I want true. So if you hit enter, that will autocomplete for you. And as you can see, it's also in navy blue to show that this is a special value. Okay. So I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm actually going to show you how to do a print statement with all of these types in. Now, that sounds a bit complicated, but it's really not. But one thing you do need to remember is that because you're using Python, and I didn't have to state each time what kind of variable I was going to use, so I didn't have to write before name, I didn't have to write string before int, I didn't have to write int. Sorry, before height I didn't have to write int, and then before inbox I didn't have to write boolean. When it comes to printing a statement with multiple types in it, you have to set them all as one type. It'll process it all. So to do that, as you can see, I've hit print again. I'm going to have my string name. Now I'm going to show you a little trick called concatenation. And what that allows you to do is build a sentence, putting in the spaces, because remember I mentioned it just swishes everything together in programming. There is no spaces. I can put in the spaces and actually make a sentence that makes logical sense. So, to do that, we use the concatenation operator, which is the plus sign. And we'll see more about the plus sign later. It does other things, but for now we're doing this. So I'm going to have my name and have a string, but an open string with nothing in it is just a space, so that it will insert a space after the name. And then I'm going to have I'm going to do another plus sign, because I'm doing name, space, and then I'm going to have the height, space, name, space, height, space, and then I'm going to have my boolean, which is inbox. Now, as you can see, now that we've created this variable, our compiler actually knows that the variable exists, so it's actually offering it in the list of options that I can just select. So I'm going to hit enter. Now fill it in for me. Great. Now, I'm going to ask you guys to pause right here and figure out what the outcome down here might be. Okay. Okay, so let's run that. And as you guessed it, now here's an interesting point. Even after what I just said, I just made a mistake. Or did I? So I just want to quickly show you guys what an error message would look like. And this is an error message. Because as I mentioned before, you'd have to put something in here to make them all the same type. Because I haven't done that, I have a string, I have an int, and I have a boolean, we've got an error message. And this is what an error message looks like. As you can see, it tells you the line that the error is on, which was here. And it says what kind of error it is. It says it can't convert an int to a string without, so I need to give the compiler some help. So what I'm going to do is actually put in here str. Okay, so just to explain to you guys what I just did there. What I'm doing is I'm converting them all to strings because the compiler does not understand. Let me print a string, then let me print a integer, then let me print a boolean. It doesn't like that. So what it's asking you to do is make it a bit easier for me and convert them all into strings, or put them all into those curly, those quotation marks for me. So the other way we can do that, especially when we're trying to convert int or booleans or any other type, is we just use the str method. And what that does is that str in front and that bracket means everything after that, the variable you're going to set after that, please convert for me into a string so that they're all of the same type. So that's all I've done here. So now if I run this, it will work. And there we go. We have our variables. Circle, 6, and true. Because I put here name, height, and inbox. Great. Well done, guys. You've done really well so far. So let's just draw a line under this and start the next part of the project. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to show you guys is how to do a bit of manipulation. Now, what on earth do I mean by manipulation? Okay, because we have variables. We know how to assign variables now. We know how to work with them. So what do I mean by manipulating variables? Well, okay, as you may have guessed, we use machines all the time to do lots of different things in our day-to-day lives. One of the biggest things that machines do is calculations. Like the little handheld calculators you all have built into your phones, or the scientific calculators you probably use for whatever calculations you need to do. When you're programming, it's no different. It understands everything in values. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick trick. If I want to make a value increase over time, I use what's called a mutator method. Now, what is a mutator method? So a mutator method is actually when we convert one value to another. So what we're actually doing is making an addition or a change. Sometimes it can be a subtraction as well, but we're making a change to the original value. Now that we can do that in a multitude of different ways. So in keeping with the current theme, I'm going to use the variable size. And what I'm going to do with size is we're going to go size are equals again, but this time I'm going to make it work back on itself. So what I'm going to say is size equals the same value, but with something done to it. So I'm going to say add 1. So what that will do is that will mean that every time we do a size add 1, which actually will be very useful when we're doing loops later, but every time we do size add 1, this is going to increase by 1, just 1. So if you think about it, if we had a value called age, we get older every year. So our age increases by 1 every year. So we could use a method like this that would allow us to just increase that value by 1 every time. So that's what I mean by mutator. As you can see, it's going to change in some way. I like to use the Incredible Hulk analogy as I'm a major Marvel fan. He starts off as just a simple man, but then when you give him some gamma radiation, he becomes bigger and surprisingly greener. So, yes, that's what a mutator method is. Okay, but it doesn't actually always, as I say again, have to be an addition. It doesn't have to always be bigger than it was originally. I could just as easily have size equals -1. Or I could have size is... Now this is an interesting one because I don't think I mentioned this before. You can also have operators that, rather than just adding and subtracting, can also make things bigger by a specific value. So you can actually make things bigger by 2. So in theory, if you have a circle, or you have a ball the size of a tennis ball, you can make that tennis ball the size of a football by multiplying it by a scale factor. Now that sounds really complicated now, but if you think about it, it's like a balloon. You have a small balloon when it's not been inflated, but if you keep putting air into that balloon, it will get bigger and bigger and bigger. The size of the balloon is now getting bigger when you calculate it. So that's the same thing the machine's doing. So I could just use the star operator, which is like a times, and make my original size 5 times bigger than it was before. But I'm not going to confuse things too much. But I could do that. I could even do it multiple times. So I could have it get 5 times bigger each time. So start off the size of a penny and end up the size of a fitness ball. You could keep doing it that way. So you can do lots of types of mutator methods. And they'll all work in the same way. They'll do some action to the original. So the reason we use mutator methods is so that we can make things different. We can change things. And that's very useful in programming, because when you think of how programs are used to control temperature in our homes, or to record our programs at home, you need to have the ability to be able to change the values as you need them, because you might not want to record the same TV show every day. You want to record different shows. Well, that's why we have mutator methods, because we can change the value of the variable that we want to work with. So I just thought I'd show you that quickly, as it's a really interesting thing to know. Okay, so for the sake of this, I'm going to have the size variable start at 5. So as we did before, I've got my size variable, the name, and it equals 5. And all I'm going to do is say I want this to increase over time. So just so that we can see what's going on, I'm going to now print the size again. Now, as you can see, it's highlighted all the 3 sizes because it's to show me where I'm using the size variable and what I'm doing to the size variable. Okay, so if I print size, we're all expecting one and one thing only. Oh look, I printed size and out pops 6 because 5 plus 1 is 6. Okay, now as you can see, the machine's done all that for us. Now I can keep on doing this. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it down here, paste it down here, and I'm going to run it again. Can you see how it's increasing by 1 every time because I'm changing the value of size? Here it was 5, here it was 6, here it was 7, here it was 8. And as you can see, each time I'm just adding 1 back into size over and over again. It's going from here and it's coming out here. And then I'm printing it. That's how it works. We pass whatever values we want from the right-hand side to the left, if you think of it that way. Okay? So, now we've kind of worked through mutator methods. I think I'd like to show you the exercise. Because so far today we've learned a lot of cool things. We've learned types, we've learned declarations, we've learned our variable names, we've learned how to do our syntax, we've learned the operators, all that kind of stuff, printing statements and calculations. So I think we're actually ready for making some cool stuff on the canvas. So I'm going to clear this all up. And now we've got a nice clean sheet, we're ready to start. Import the turtle package. So there we go, we've got import turtle. As you can see, that comes up, it's a built-in module. And I'll explain a little bit about modules in later tutorials. But all you need to understand is that modules are built-in, almost like storybooks, built-in storybooks that have a list of instructions in the same way that we've been doing before, but if you want a particular or very specific set of instructions or built-in functions, you have to pull out the specific storybooks. That's exactly what a module is like. And you'll find that Python has many, maybe hundreds of these. But today we're just using Turtle. And in fact, this is a great moment to look over to your trinkets, because I actually use Turtle quite a bit when creating those, because I think it's a really good package for design, and you'll soon see why. Okay. Without further ado, let's kind of go on to this a bit more. So, import turtle. The first thing I need to do is create a turtle. So I'm going to call the turtle in this case shape. Well, actually, I'm going to draw a smiley face. I'm going to put smile equals turtle. And then because I'm creating a turtle from a turtle class, I actually have to define that it's from the turtle class. And can you see there's a C here, and it realizes that turtle class is the turtle package. That's what they're going to select. And then there's brackets behind that, just to define the class. Okay. I'm now going to design my smiley face. So the first thing I need to do is draw a circle. So I'm going to do smile, set the position on the canvas. And now, so when I say set the position on the canvas, the way the canvas works is imagine it's a giant square. The central point on that square is where we're going to move our pointer from, and basically we're moving our pointer, or the turtle itself, out by how many pixels, whether it's left, right, up, down. And the way that we do that is we set an X and a Y coordinate. And you don't need to worry about what they are right now, but you realise that you can, like I said at the beginning of the session, you can use those ints to go up, down, left or right. So I can say use a positive value if I want to go up, and use a negative value if I want to go down on my as my second value. But as my first value, if I want to go left, I do minus values. If I want to go right, I do positive values. So you can basically move around the canvas by doing that. So what I'm going to do is go smile.setPos. Okay, for now I'm going to go 0, 0, right? Which means it's going to be dead center. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to smile, pen down. Because what I want to make sure is that it's actually drawing something on the canvas so that you can see the turtle. Which in this case is going to be like a little arrow. But later on you'll see so that you can do some cool stuff where you can actually make it a physical turtle, which is kind of cool. But we'll get onto that a little bit later. So smile, setPos, pen down. Okay, yes, so I would like to go round in a circle, right? So the way that we do that is we actually define the angle. So I just actually use the circle method. And then what I can do is go
I want my circle to be so wide. Now, the way circles work is you think about the center point on a circle, and then you think about that any point on the circle's edge. So any point on that line that you can see that makes up the circle, the brownness, you go from the center outwards, and that's what we call the radius. And basically, I'm going to put in any number I want. Doesn't matter what the number is. So in this case, I'm going to do 60. But you could do any value you want. And then so that we make a full circle, we need to use the value 360 because, as you probably heard before, like an Xbox 360, it means that you're doing a whole full circle. That's actually why it was called the Xbox 360. It's like you're going the whole way round. That's what it means. So let's just put the 360 in there, and do you know what? I think we should see what happens. So let's run that. Oh, great. So now, as you saw on screen, run that again just in case you guys didn't see that. It makes a full circle. Brilliant. Okay, so we can see it drawing. So if we're going to make a smiley face, that's a bit tiny, right? So I'm going to increase this, and you're going to see how it's going to be bigger than the last time. So this time I'm going to go for, you know what? A really big circle. I'm going to go for 300. But let's see what happens. Okay, now the circle's too big, but we can still see how that works. And can you see how it started from the middle of that giant window? And that's because of my set position. Basically, the pointer started at the center of the window and right around. What I could have done, though, is obviously move the circle down, which is what I'm going to do now. So if I want that circle to go down by quite a bit, I'm going to change this to -100. Okay. Now if I run this again, okay, so we can see that the circle's moving down, but now we've got this horrid line in the middle there. There's got to be a way of keeping that on screen, because it keeps exiting on close. But I'll sort that in a minute. So yeah, horrible line that we don't like the look of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down by 300 completely, so we can see. Oh great, now it's better, right? We don't want a horrible line in the middle. So what we actually do is the following. Before the line is drawn, we need to use the function pen up. Now, that's because when we started, as you noticed, I used pen down, and that meant that we were going to show the turtle, and it was going to draw a line. Well, pen up does the complete opposite. It basically removes the turtle off the page temporarily, like you're not drawing on a piece of paper. You imagine you put your pen down, and you hold your pen, and then you drag a piece of paper away, you're going to leave a dirty mark. However, if you were to not have your pen on the paper when you don't need it, no drawing, same principle. So let's try that again. Oh look, it shoots down. Yay! Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to move on to making some eyes, and then the smile, and then you're going to see a beautiful smiley face. Now, before I do that, actually, what I'm going to do is I think a white circle is pretty bland, so I'm going to go in there and put some colour. So, as you can see just here, I've kind of put pen up, set the position, pen down, and then I've started my circle. But somewhere in here, just here, I'm actually going to put, there's my turtle name again, Smile. Because up here you can see I created the Smile turtle. And then I'm going to put a method called begin fill. As you can see, follow the raw turtle package. And that's the other thing. So when you have packages, sometimes a package can have another package within it. It's a bit like in Amazon. They give you a giant box, and then you've got multiple little boxes inside. Exactly the same thing when you think of modules in Python. So in this case, you've got raw turtle and your turtle. Just thought I'd let you guys know. So as you can see, I'm going to make the beginning of the fill, and then I've got to end it. So let's decide on, just under pen down, what colour we want. So I'm going to go ahead and pick your colour. I am a fan of red, so I'm going to go with red. Red sounds like a good colour. And for that matter, I'm going to also make the outside pen red too. Does that sound like a good idea? Actually, no, I'm not. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it blue, just so that you can see the difference. But over time, ordinarily, I would have had a nice big red circle. And there's loads of features that you can actually play around with in just creating the circle. You've got things like you can change the pen size, you can change the speed of how your turtle draws, all sorts. But for now, we're just doing a basic circle. So let's run that again. Oh look, he's going around. Let's do that. Oh, sorry, I did fill colour for both, didn't I? I meant to do pen colour. My mistake. Let's change that. Let's try that again. There we go. Nice blue line. That's what I meant to happen. And then there you go. Look, they've got the red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys to pause at this point, try that out. You guys can just, have a look at that code, copy that code out, and just have a little go at manipulating it. Just try out some different sizes. So I showed you how to move the circle down. So I showed you the center point. Obviously, if you want to move the circle up, you would just do a positive value on as your second value. So as you can see, going from the center. No, now it's up here. There we go. Okay, so use a positive value to move up. And in fact, I'm going to comment that. So, change the first value to move left and right. Change the second value to move up and down. And just so I can be complete and you guys can see what happens if I move left and right, I'm going to do minus 40. But I'm not going to change this one so you can see the difference. Oh look, it's shifted across a little bit. That might not have been enough, so just in case you guys didn't get to see that, let's try minus 140. So you can see what I mean. See, it's all over here. I don't think we need to see the whole circle for that, but yeah. And just as easily, I could have gone positive 114. Yeah, let's go for that. So that's how you can move it around the canvas. And obviously, you don't have to have it always at the center point. I could have done 140, and then make this one minus. Trying to think of value. Minus 100. So what you're going to have there is if it's minus 100, it's going to go down the canvas. But because it's 140, it's going to go across. So what we'll see is in the bottom right-hand corner. Oh, look, there we go. And you can keep on doing that. And obviously, you can change the sizes down here, like I explained before. I'm also going to put the code for that. So the first number controls the radius. And the second value controls how much of a circle you have. Which is an interesting point, which I'm going to come on to later. Or actually, you can see it in the IOs, the trinkets. Let's call them trinkets, but they are called trinket IOs. You'll be able to see that in the trinkets later, because instead of using full circles, I actually use some different kinds of circles. That's quite interesting. So actually, if you guys wanted to skip ahead, I decided to change the second number and see what happens. because interestingly enough, if you have ever played the Nintendo game, well, not Nintendo game, but the old arcade game Pac-Man, you will soon be able to realise that if you change that number, you will see your friendly childhood character right there. Yeah, it's quite interesting, so I thought that was cool. But yeah, have a little play with this, and then I will show you. Okay, welcome back. I just wanted to say that whilst you were gone, I made some slight alterations. So as you can see, we have some variables up here. In fact, I'm just going to label those right now. So I introduced the name variable, and we've worked with this before. I introduced the now an x and y variable, and if you've noticed, I've actually changed this down here. So these used to have values in here, but I've actually pulled them out. And I've commented them, this one being the left-right variable, and this one being the up and down variable. And the reason I've done that is actually because in programming, we do this all the time. We would rather make a variable than put the values in directly, because by making a variable, we can go ahead and change these at any time, whether the user wants to change them or the program itself wants to change them. But it means that we can manipulate them a bit better, which is a lot better to do. It means that our code is a lot more versatile. It means our code's a lot better, and it allows more options. So that's what we want to do. So that's why I've gone ahead and done that. And in fact, I'm just going to give you another example. This, I'm going to call this number here, I'm going to make a variable called radius. And I'm going to set it to 300. And then I'm going to go ahead and label that, so you guys can see what's going on. Controls, size of the circle, center point to the outside. Okay, and then I'm going to just take that out here and replace it with radius. And as you can see, it knows the variable because the variable's up here. It's exactly the same. I could have left the number in there, but as you can see, this is a lot better. This is far better. The only reason I'm not going to change this one and do the same is because, and you will see this later, if I was to make this into another variable called degree, which I could do, it could get a bit confusing because I might not want to make full circles in the future. I just want to make half circles, or as I mentioned before, the Pac-Man design. So I'm not going to do that one, but as you can see, that's how you would go about doing them. Yeah, so without further ado, we'll move on to the rest of the face and constructing different shapes if necessary. Okay, cool. So just before I move on to creating small circles, one thing I would like to do is just quickly add in a few things, and that's just because I feel like I'd like you guys to see the canvas for a bit longer, just so you can see the images going on. So I'm actually going to add in a screen object, which is just another turtle. But what that does is it controls the screen, because at the moment the only turtle that we have working is the one that's controlling the circle. But I would like another turtle to control the screen, which is also useful because then I can change the background color. But for now, I'm just going to create another turtle, call it screen, use that operator again, and then I'm going to make another turtle, and then you're going to see something. So if I go S, look, there we go, we've got another function, screen function. And all I'm going to do down here is after I run my program, so I actually probably should put it here. After I run the entirety of my program, I want to have the words screen dot exit on click. And all that means is that the window won't close till I tell it to close. Okay, so I'm just going to go run that just to prove my point. There we go, it's still there, and I'm going to click it, it's gone. Yay! And that's just so that we can see everything going on a bit better. So now to go ahead and make this small circle. I'll draw a small circle. Some eyes. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same principle. In fact, do you know what I'm going to do as well? I'm going to move this back to the center point, because It's 2 shifted, so let's just run that again, have a quick look what's going on. Brilliant. Might need to shift down the circle a little bit more as well. But as you can see, it's just a wonderful learning curve. You can kind of keep doing this, exactly what I'm doing. And that way you can keep a track on what's going on. I think that's far down enough. Yeah, and as you can see, the point is actually still here. So yeah, I'm now going to change some colours as well, because I don't like red and blue together. So I'm going to go ahead and change that as well, just before I start. So, okay, I'm going to make small circles for the eyes. So I'm going to have to create a new turtle. Rather than putting it up here, which I could do, I'm actually going to create the turtle down here just so you can see it's a different thing. As an interesting point as well, as I've called the big circle Smile, I don't think that's really a really good accurate name to call it anymore. So if I wanted to change that, I can just right click this and go down to a thing called Refactor and then rename. And you're going to see something very, very cool here. I can delete Smile and change Smile to Big C as in big circle, or even just write big circle and hit Refactor. And it changes them all, which is fantastic, rather than me having to manually change each one. So that was just, I thought, something that you might really like. So now I'm going to do the small circle. So actually I'm going to create a new turtle called Small Circle. And that's going to be a new turtle. Okay. So once again, I'm going to create the circle object. Now the first thing I need to do is, as I did with the first one, lift the pen off the page. And the reason that's important is because we don't want it to draw from a center point. So then I'm going to go, I seem to have got a gap. Now can you see how it doesn't like spaces? And I mentioned that earlier. These are all great things to know. So let's do circle, small circle. And this time, I'm going to set position. So if, let's just look at this. If my circle is going to be 300 big, then I want to position, if you think about it, if I started here at 0, and I've shifted it down by minus 250, I want to have my circle maybe at about, maybe 30 or 40 left for the left eye, and maybe 50 down. Let's try that. It could be that I'm completely wrong, but that's how I would go about approaching where you want to put your small circles. So I'm going to put, yeah, let's go for that. Minus 30, so it's going to shift to the left. No, in fact, I might do something greater than minus 30. Minus 80, and move it down by minus 60, for instance. Let's just go ahead and run that, see what happens. Let's just put in pen down. And I really want to change the pen colour because actually I think it'll be standard black, so that'll be fine. Because I think by default it is black, and this is a new turtle. So let's try that. I haven't actually put in the circle, and that would be, and this is this is what I mean by coding as you go along, because I've just missed out the circle. That's terrible, but yes. As you can tell, even I have a few moments where I'm not 100%. Okay, so I'm gonna. That's it. So our circle size, we'd want to be pretty small. So I'm gonna go for 30 maybe. And again 360 because we want the whole circle. Let's try running that instead. Okay, so we have made a circle, but it's not in the place that we expected it to be. So what should we do about this? So I need to shift this circle from here up here. So I don't mind how far it is across the circle. I kind of like that. It could go a bit further, but we need it to raise up. So I will actually give you guys a minute. Just think about how I would go about doing that. And then, yeah, come back. So pause me. Okay, so you've got it. So basically, I went down rather than going up. So what I actually needed to do was maybe set this to positive 100. Because I need to go up the canvas with this circle. And yeah, it's a little bit too close to the center, so I'm actually going to make this 160. Let's try that. I'm going to run that again. Oh, that's perfect. That's exactly where I wanted it. Okay. So I'm actually going to make a duplicate of this. And all I really have to do is copy and paste it, right? Because we already have one, so why do I need to do the second? Do it again. So what I'm actually going to do is paste that. Do some separate commenting. But because now I've got a left and a right eye, I'm going to go draw the right eye. And say draw the left eye. And later on, actually, I'm going to show you how we don't need to have duplicate code. So I've actually duplicated this just to show you this quickly. But I'm going to show you later how we don't have to have duplicate code. And we can just do it with just this small piece of code here. But to do the right eye, if I've gone minus 160 to put it on the left-hand side of the canvas, what do you think I need to do to put it on the right-hand side of the canvas? You got it. So I just take off the minus, and then it'll be identical. In fact, it'll mean that it'll be just as close on the other side, because it's called a thing called symmetry. If you go right down the middle of something, and then I say, this is how far left I want to go, then if I do the same amount right, then that means they will be symmetrical, and they will be the same distance away from the center point. So let's just do that. But I'm going to go ahead and refactor this, because obviously we're going to use the same turtle. It'll be drawing all over the place and just be a mess. So let's not do that. I'm going to go ahead and refactor again. So we right-click, refactor, rename. And I'm going to change small circle now to a more appropriate name, which is going to be left eye. There goes our camel casing again. Refactor all of those. Oh, did it twice. Did not think of that ahead of time. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to right eye. I'm just going to change these manually, because if I use refactor again, it will refactor them all, not in the way that I want. So I'm just quickly changing those. But as you can see, that's all fixed now. So let's just check it's all fixed. I said it is, but let's just check it's all fixed. Yes, it is. So let's run that and see what happens. And we have two beautiful eyes. It's great. It's fantastic. Now, I think all good smiles require a smile. So I'm going to go straight into that. Draw the smile. And just for speed, I've kind of gone ahead and done that. But I'm going to walk you through it and show you exactly what we needed to do. So again, made a fresh turtle, specifically for sight smile this time. And obviously, like, I lifted the pen up once again, because we need to lift the pen off the canvas so that we're not drawing still. And then I've now got a new function in here, and this is called set heading. So what set heading actually does is it changes the direction of the turtle. So as you may have noticed, when all the other turtles have been drawn, they start facing the general east direction, which is, it's not always the best place to start, because if you're doing a circle, it's fine because you're going to go the whole way around. But if you're imagining you're only doing half of a circle, you'd actually want to start pointing downwards. So you'd actually want to start pointing south, and that's kind of why I put the little south comment in there. So to do that, I've actually had to set the heading to 270. Now that seems like a random value, but it's actually not. 270, when you consider it as part of a circle, as you're going round the circle. If you were to do 180, if you were facing in this general direction, like this point here, you were going this way, then you're going to go all the way round and up, okay? And that would put you there for 180. So if you think of half of 180 again, you would need to go a further 90, which puts you facing downwards, because the character's going to go round, 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 up, and over here, and then it's going to be facing down at this point, and that's why it's 270. 360 would be too much. It would be once again facing this direction. It would be going towards the right. 270 is just enough of a value for the cursor to be facing down, and that is why we use 270. So I just thought I'd put that out there. And then again, we need to set the position of our smile. Now, interestingly, I've done -100, and the reason I've done -100 is because I want the smile to be 100 left of the center point, and that's because my smile's actually going to be 100 in radius. So for it to be equal on both sides, I'd need to offset it from the central point, because otherwise we'd have a lopsided smile, and nobody wants a smile on the right hand side of the face but not on the left. So by offsetting it by -100, all I'm doing is saying I want the middle of the smile to be exactly dead center. So that's why I've done that. And then I've shifted it down 100 because I think that will be about an appropriate place to put a smile. We don't want it too high and we don't want it too low. And then I've just said pen down. And the reason I've done it in that order is because if I had put this setting position after pen down, it would draw from the center point to pen down. Sorry, not to pen down, to where I want my line to go. My smile to go, and that wouldn't look like a face. It would look more like whiskers, or it just wouldn't look correct. So that's why I've done that. And as you can see, I've used 180 because, as I say again, it's not a full circle. We only want half of the circle to make a smile. So I'm going to go ahead and run this so that you guys can see your finished face. And there we go. We have a happy smiley face with a pretty dense smile there, pretty intense smile, almost Joker-like. But as I say again, there you go. You've just made your first image on the canvas. And I think you've all done very well. This actually brings us to the close of your first lesson.